A very good evening to everyone present here. I'm Kanan Rawat and I'm excited to welcome all of you on behalf of EdgeCon and Ka-Ching to a thought-provoking session with Ms. Reshma Valliappan. This year, under the banner of FREED, which stands for Free Reign of Egalitarian Expression and Discourse, we aim to explore the modern aspects of the society that we feel create discourse, debate, and discussion. And this month's theme is psychological freedom, more precisely, the unconfined mind. Joining us today is Ms. Reshma Valliappan. She is the founder and director of The Red Door that started in 2011, which tries to creatively redefine mental ill health orders and other disorders since 2011. She's also a protagonist in a award-winning documentary called A Drop of Sunshine, and we're more than happy to have her here. Ma'am, could I request you to join in? Hello, ma'am. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much. We're so glad to have you here.
Well, good to be online finally after ages.
So we would start away with the questions.
All right.
So the first question that we want to ask you, wait, just one sec, this is shaking a bit. Yes. So the first question that we want to ask you is, what is our true authentic self and how do we distinguish that with our societal influence? Basically, how do we confront denial with our true self and conformity?
So, what is our true self? That's going to take ages for us to figure it out. There's no such one defined question, right? Your self keeps changing over a period of years. From the time you're a toddler to the time you're a teenager to being a young adult and then to adulthood. After that, it's, midlife crisis and so on and so forth. So your true self honestly keeps changing almost all the time. Like how you have a generational gap that you can identify to. Imagine having a generational gap within yourself almost every other day. How do you define a true self by that? I mean, for those of us who probably cut our haircut very often, you get a pedicure and manicure, the first thing that is told to you is your cells are dying almost every single day. For me, that's your starting point. When you just look at your physical body, everything is dying every single day, and every single day there are new things that are regenerating inside of you. In retrospect, also with the emotions that we have, it's constantly circulating, and so on with our thoughts, it's constantly circulating. So there's no one answer to what then is my true self. My true self is connected to the people around me, and in how we connect to the people around us, we are going to also start looking at the meaning of ourself and the meaning of our authentic self.
That's absolutely well said. To the next question that I would like to move on to, since you brought up the people that we're connected to, so I'm automatically assuming the society around us, the people we grew up with. So there is this one very popular saying that we go with, that log kya kahenge. So why do you think there is a sense of entitlement in society that multiple people can have a say in one person's life? Like we always ask, log kya kahenge? But I think log kyun kehte hain? And this seems like a very basic, scratching the surface question, but isn't it root of all the societal pressure and the constant feeling that you're being watched and judged and labeled? So my question, the true essence of my question is, why do people have the right to say in other people's lives and like how to grow up and how to live?
Because we are born in a society that, if you look at the anthropological or the historical concept of what society means, it's from cavemen onwards, right? Bronze Age, Ice Age, Stone Age, and then modern man. And although we are social beings, we ourselves, as we age, how do you come to the concept of your true self is really based around the people around you, right? When you're born, you first identify to, your parents. After that, you identify to your siblings, if you have them, or your immediate siblings, which are your cousins. And then that's your inner circle, your outer circle. And then you have a circle that's larger than you, which is then your community and your society. So we have our nurture, and we also have our nature and the environment around us. So for eons, man that is us, have been constructed by society. We live in a constructed world. There is nothing we can do so much about that fact. That's the reality, right? We're having this conversation today not because we need to raise awareness to donkeys and monkeys to accept us. Like, a gorilla is not interested in Instagram live, right? The gorilla is not interested in, what I'm about to say about authentic self. The gorilla is busy being a gorilla. And the thin line between us and the gorilla and the dogs and the monkeys are the fact that it comes down to what has been said, that we are thinking beings. We think a lot. We use our minds for that faculty to process and intellectualize our world. And when we do that, that is where mankind is caught in a flux or a duality of our suffering, our thought. It can be a gift at the same time. It can be the one thing that also becomes a curse, so to say, or the problem of our suffering, or the root cause of our suffering.
No, that's absolutely well said. And that does lead me to like another question that, like you mentioned, that men, like humanity as a whole, like their purpose, and automatically the humankind always considered themselves superior to other animals like gorillas and monkeys, only because they believe that they have a sense of purpose. So finding one's self-true journey, is like the finding one's true self is a journey. But the whole, we glorify the journey. We make it sound so important and necessary. And however, mythology and literature in general, they have like glorified it, the journey to self-actualization. But which has meant that people often look at their own lives and try to find their true self through such journey. And in this regard, do you think that people lose the sight of the journey as they try to find the path towards self-realization, that they forget what the destination is and they're so involved and invested in this whole journey?
Yes. To what you're saying, that almost everything in life is romanticized, right? Not just mythology. Today we have newer words like bibliophobia. I can't even pronounce half of these words that are out there. But many things are romanticized. Many things have become tools for us to go into self-actualization mode, that the actual process is forgotten. And I think it just comes down to that one basic sentence, that is, we're so bothered by the tools to our journey, we forget the journey itself.
Mm-hmm.
Where we think about everything. Oh, my car needs to be fixed. I need to get the petrol. So when I'm talking about the car needs to be fixed, and the petrol needs to be there, and who are going to be my fellow companions? Did I get my passport? Of course, these are reality, but look at it in terms of a metaphor. The car is maybe this book we read. The petrol is probably what that person has said. The passport is probably what my culture is telling me. And these are all the different tools that we have for making that journey. And we're so caught in it that we automatically forget just the process. That here and now, the moment, right? We're forgetting it. We're forgetting what that moment really is in our life. And that is the journey within your journey. That's all that matters. Now, how we get there is a different thing altogether. We're so focused on how we're getting there that we actually forget to even make that first move. I hope that sums it up. Or
Oh, no. It really does. And I feel we're all really invested in the journey, and we forget our main purpose, and we forget why we're doing something that we're doing. And somewhere deep down, it's the validation we also crave. And I absolutely agree with you. And as you mentioned, that we have forgotten this over the past because of the ways that we have romanticized it, that we have glorified it. It makes me want to go to this one question, that about how there's another thing that we have forgotten, that every human being has a feminine as well as a masculine side to them. And that is said to complete them, that, the masculine and the female side complete and make a complete human being. And even mythology has examples of these, like Arjun reaches his epitome of strength and fulfillment when he converts into Brihanila during his final years of exile. And even Mohini, she's like the only female avatar of Vishnu. However, the modern society fails to acknowledge this balance, and one's female side is often considered to be inferior to the masculine side and often attached a negative connotation. So what is that mental barrier that we have developed now despite all this progress and advancement, that we are forgetting and losing this balance?
Our ego. We think we know it all. And the more we realize we know it all, we should accept that there's just so much more that we don't know. Every single mythology on this earth, on this planet, created by any other human being, I mean, we can just go on arguing or creating newer stories. I mean, Hindu mythology, I mean, what you just pointed out takes me back to Ruth Vanita's book, Same Sex Love in India. But it also reminds me of Plato's Symposium, where he broke down, how gender came into being, how man and woman came into being. And like Plato, there's so many other people and so many other philosophers who have written about this. Now, we can go on about a lot of things, right? On which comes first, which comes second. I mean, even following from your previous question that, what is authentic at the end of the day? I mean, we can go from science, we can go to religion, we can go to food, we can go to fitness. The beautiful part about humanity is we are very diverse. But what happens is we get very caught up in wanting to be diverse, that we start obsessing on our diversity so much that we actually forget the essence of us is you and me. Beneath your hair and my hair, or our skin colors or our gender labels, is remove our skin and remove our muscles and remove, what do we get? We get a skeleton. By the end of it, the only certainty that matters to you and me is, which is very difficult for humans to really get at, is death. That is my only certainty that we have, right? And that's what pandemic has shown us, that death is our certainty. And we look the same when we are dead. Nothing else matters, okay? What your beliefs are and what my labels are and what my suffering is, when I'm dead, it doesn't really make a difference. How do we break those stereotypes? It starts by us, you, me. It's not by me forcing somebody else that, you need to read this book. It'll help you. No, why would I want to do that? I just need to do it for myself. And by being true to myself, irrespective of what my religion is or what my belief is, I'm not going to go around saying that, hey, the God you're praying to doesn't exist, or, only the God that I pray to exists. I mean, I can come up with random stuff like vampires, right? And somebody's going to say that it doesn't exist. But I'm sorry, Ekta Kapoor has a serial about it, so it exists. But I obviously can't force my thoughts onto somebody else. And I think it's not anymore about gender binaries. We live in a world that recognizes that, yes, women have suffered quite a lot because of patriarchy. We also live in a world that now understands that men are equally affected by patriarchy, right? So why are we fighting about who comes first? Are we not humans? I mean, is not my suffering equally as important as that guy's suffering? I think it boils down to the most basic principle that we see in animals. There's little memes and, videos that you sometimes see of them. I remember once seeing a monkey rescuing a puppy from a flood. Now, is that true or not? I don't know, but wow. I mean, another species can do it to another species, right? Why can't we as humans do it? Where did our diversity reach such a point that I have to fight with you about it?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're really forgetting what it means to be human. Just that, as long as I don't see, at the end we're all assholes. Okay, like I am sure I have been mean to my parents. No doubt we've been mean to our parents. We have abused our parents in and out, right? So if somebody was to say that I'm coming from an abusive relationship, I'm going to say that, well, yeah, have you considered the fact that maybe you have probably said something to your parents and it could have been abusive in itself. So none of us are saints to begin with. I think the bifurcation line is maybe yes, some would say that, you know, what a rapist has done or somebody who's assaulted you, all of that. And that's a very tricky line to
Mm-hmm.
get into. It's just coming down to, okay, if I've been an asshole to you, um, can I reach a negotiation with you perhaps, and you know, maybe, you know, feel remorse about what I'm doing and make up for it, and whether I'm given the opportunity for it also. And I think that's how I personally look at how we can be better humans to each other.
Yeah, I think we're all too caught up with the battle of of sexes, the battles that we're facing every day, that we lose our own moral code, and somewhere deep down we're like altering it to our convenience and trying to make our lives easier. And yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And yeah, so you were talking about diversity and vampires. I know this question is a little different that I want to go for. And in your multiple talks that you addressed yourself as an alien, and you are sent, and your goal is to send and spread madness in this world. And why do you think we need this madness, this chaos? And
Well, the where I addressed myself as an alien, of course, came from a 20-year journey of having lived with schizophrenia. And the concept of being an alien, of course, at that point was very true and authentic to my experience in itself, and to many people like me who have lived being alienated by society, right? Being alienated by humans who have stigmatized us just for the conditions that we have. That's the alienation that is felt, and therefore we consider ourselves to be aliens. Now, I can't, of course, tell you that some UFO came on top and, like, you know, and all of that jazz that happens. It might be true for somebody else, not true for me. Uh, but it's coming from that feeling of being an alien, and you start recognizing that I don't belong here, you know, because everybody else is treating me differently, and maybe I'm from a different planet, and I'm pretty sure almost everybody feels that way. Everybody feels this need inside of them, like I don't belong here. Maybe I'm from a different place. Why do we feel that? We feel that because people around us don't accept us for who we are. We feel that because society doesn't accept us for this diversity that we're having. And it's not so much of the strangers, it's the people that we love that probably don't accept that. So when I say I finally came to this planet, of course, that's really my selling point. I pretty much look like you. I have hair. I, you know, have two eyes. I don't have that bulbous head like you find in movies. Very much, I have, you know, all the characteristics of a human being. So I guess I'm very much a human who, and now my narrative has changed, where I'm telling the world that, you know what, this is my planet, and if you plan on destroying it, please get yourself out of this planet. You know, and I think because I didn't find myself a place in it, but now that I found my place in it, I have shifted it to say that you get out, because that's not what being human is about.
no, true, true. So you talked about feeling alienated, like I'm using the term alienated, and like, you know, feeling different. So earlier, like when we were still exploring the whole concept and the boundaries of psychological disorders, isolation was previously used as a method of treatment for such mental illnesses, and people perceive them to be due to evil spirits. And but now that we know there is no explanation of this sort, but yet a lot of people turn to asylums which are based on isolation when it comes to treatment of such illnesses. So why do you think people still choose, like at this point when we have like better data and better understanding and research, that we still choose such institutions and treatment over therapy and medically proven treatment?
Well, now that you've pointed out psychological freedom, I would just say that we, I think, are so stuck in the concept of what freedom is that we've actually given our freedom to somebody else to decide. It's the irony of who we are as human beings. Yes, we have treatments now. There are multiple treatments, right? Some people prefer to choose God as a valid treatment, and if that works for them, a lot of professionals also say, okay, if that is what they believe to be, their narrative, then we we don't want to stop them, right? That's respecting what the other person believes in. Now, and some other individuals feel that what they're experiencing simply requires an asylum or requires a medical treatment. And now, for us as an advocate or an activist, it is also to respect that this is what they believe in, and therefore it's their choice to make. Now, to go to the second part of what you're mentioning is, why are people not choosing otherwise? I don't know. There are many people right now listening to me. Maybe we should ask them why they're not choosing otherwise, right? I mean, I only know what I've chosen, and I'm not God to read into what people's minds are. I would like to have telepathy as my superpower. Maybe I do. I don't know. I don't care. Even if I did, I wouldn't want to get into somebody else's mind because it's paranoia. People, I think, what I can understand is that we have reached a point in our lives where we are in a way also codependent for somebody else to make these decisions for us, instead of realizing that we are coexisting, right? And I think it's that switch that needs to happen. When I become codependent, I expect somebody else to help me. I expect somebody else to give me the knowledge and to give me that awareness. When you stop doing that, you will find your answers yourself. I mean, what's stopping us from Googling? I mean, when I was a teenager, there was no Google, right? We didn't have Gmail. It was Hotmail, I remember. And right now, everything is available. I mean, of course, it's sort of an information overload, but it doesn't stop you from seeking your answers. And to use technology in a good way where you can find out multiple ways to actually help yourself, right? It's not about medical treatment or God treatment or shamanic treatment, whatever works for you. There's so many opportunities out there. If you really want to find your own freedom, take it. Nobody can take your freedom away. And see, that's the beauty about the human mind, okay? It boils down to the first question you asked me. The authentic self, all I can tell you is the reason I'm sitting here and I'm not dead is because my schizophrenia has kept me alive. If it was not for my schizophrenia, I would have been dead a long time back, which means whatever experiences you and I have, irrespective of schizophrenia or not, it could be anything, it has given us a sense of something. It has kept us alive, and to realize that in this experience of our suffering, we actually have freedom. We've just not seen it. You can lock me up, I can lock you up, I can call you names, I can abuse you, you can do the same for me, but at the end, you can choose to really fight it up here. And that really keeps you going. So when I look in terms of, again, your psychological freedom, I just changed the meaning of psychological freedom with my paranoia, right? If you look at schizophrenic symptoms as such, when people say people like me are living in a different reality, or we have a make-believe reality of imaginary friends and mythological characters, I would just say that no, I've just replaced one reality that was extremely traumatic by another reality, which means I have actually found my freedom in that reality. So why is that not allowed? That's very much a valid reality. I mean, I'm pretty sure if an alien from a different planet actually came and existed, they would say that you guys are highly imaginative. I'm not sure why you're calling it madness.
No, I agree. And especially the part where you said that, it's the mind that it's still ours. It reminds me of the scene from Shawshank Redemption when he says that, hope is not a dangerous thing to have. And it's like the good thing. It's like one of the best things to have. And that,
It's
really
also
shows.
Hunger Games.
Yeah, and Hunger Games.
Yeah, hope is more dangerous than fear.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and connecting that, like the places where they break you down and they try to make you a whole new person, like prisons and conversion camps. So I had a question about it, like when did we develop such a deep rooted fear or like homophobia or like just that we wanted to use violence or barbaric methods to change someone? Like why is it our go-to method? Why do we resort to violence to change someone or alter their personality?
It reminds me of John Lennon's song Imagine.
Ah,
Imagine there's no country, imagine there are no religion, imagine there are no boundaries, imagine none of it existed. What does it come down to when you imagine all of it exists? It's power.
mhm.
People hunger for power in every possible way. And that hunger for power is nothing but, well, I know this is Instagram Live and not like I'm part of any political party, so I don't give a shit. When I say people hunger for power, it just tells me that if you hunger for power, it means you're really, 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 really insecure. Right? The biggest of bullies are extremely insecure people. I also know that because I was a bully and I was bullied. So I also see it. I see it at a magnified level that when you have correction facilities, I have been a product of one such, I wouldn't call it a facility. It's called, what do you call it? I forgot my word. I'm so sorry. It's called the troubled teen industry. And that does not exist in India. For those who are interested, they can look up Breaking Code Silence by Paris Hilton. So Paris Hilton currently is the ambassador for Breaking Code Silence because she was one of the products of the troubled teen industry herself. And these industries exist. Why? Because they just simply cannot stand teenagers who are outspoken, who are loud, we're just really different. What do I say? We're some teenagers like us. I mean, of course, I'm not saying teenagers like me. Maybe I look really young, can't help it. I'm immortal. But that's what got me in trouble. But I was a teenager back in 95. So when you're looking at teenagers back then, we're high strung, we're rebels to another level. We fought for things that you don't really have to fight for today. And it became difficult for our parents. But I don't want to go in length about what made the teenagers like that. It goes back to your question that it boils down to power. If you look at how, the English, colonized different countries, what did it come down to? Power, right? They just wanted power. Why? When we look at history, why? Because it's this tiny little country that has nothing. I'm sorry if you're from England or if you're English, but that's the fact. It's a tiny little country that had nothing, but it could really overpower all of these different countries that it colonized. How did they do it? By breaking people down, by dividing and ruling. And we were stupid enough to allow that to happen, and we are still stupid enough to allow it to happen in our own lives. We are stupid enough to actually be educated people. We're fools. We're the biggest fools because we're educated, right? Because we forget the British doing it. The British did it and they're gone. They've left, but we're still stuck in it. And we're stuck in it in our everyday lives. We don't have to be stuck in it. We have the freedom to actually fight it. But yeah,
I think it's somewhere deep down, it's like, yes, yeah. And I think it's somewhere so deep rooted in us that we're not willing to fight it.
I mean, all I can say is that, looking hard again at your question and what you were asked me and I was teaching kids for 6 years before the pandemic. And these are kids who have gone through a lot of other things in life, right? They're coming from different types of communities, a lot of bullying, a lot of assault that is happening. And all I saw was nothing but every child who has lost power in their own life, or and living with that insecurity, and they're trying to find themselves, their authentic self, by forcing their ways onto another child, and then we call them bullies. We only become that way because it was taken away from us by another adult, and that adult became the adult that they are because it was taken away from them when they were also kids, when they were adults. And that's what is known as the intergenerational trauma. That is a vicious circle that we are stuck in, and until we decide to break it ourselves, it's never going to stop. I mean, if you look at it, the most beautiful part about, if I have to really sum it up, because I know I don't want to stretch this conversation, is to just what I tell my kids or my students in school is that a situational example, that if you have 10 boys trying to ask a girl out, who is the most powerful? You have 10 boys. One boy is interested in the girl. Why can't he just walk up and ask the girl out? But boys are not taught that. It's not the boy's fault, right? Boys are not taught that. They're not taught to be confident by themselves. कि अगर आपको लड़की चाहिए, why are you dragging 9 other boys with you? Right? I mean, it is going to spook the girl out. If you like her, go and just tell her directly. Now, the reverse is also the same. That as girls, do we have the power to tell a boy that, hey, I like you? We don't, because that was also not taught to us. So this power dynamic is a very interesting thing at the end of the day. We actually have power. We're just not shown how to use it. I mean, true power does not lie. So we have what is known as the peaceful warrior way. And true power does not lie in you trying to make somebody else look bad. True power lies if you can actually stop a fight and you can bring 10 people together. For me, that is true power, because there's no competition left. There's no question of competition existing. It is more beautiful to get 10 people together, because it's that there's a quote that says that it is the same amount of effort required for you to feel miserable and to cause misery onto somebody else, and it is the same amount of energy that you use to feel great and to make another person feel great about themselves. What you choose over there is really the highlight of who you are as a human being.
And I'm sorry, I can't get over the example of the girl and the boy. Like, it's a very interesting thing. Like, the true power is in us, and the only thing that's stopping us is our own insecurities and the fear of rejection. Yes, so my next question, this is more towards with the family aspect. So the families in India, especially joint families, have multiple younger members, and they usually live on the two extreme sides of the spectrum, either under extreme pressure or facing total neglect. So how do you think that this affects an individual? Like you talked about siblings and how, family helps us grow. So this is in respect to that.
Wow, I live in a joint family, so I mean, I came to India and just entered a joint family, so I get it. There are always positive and a negative to everything, right? The best part about a joint family is free food. I mean, I hate to cook. I can't cook to save my ass. I forget to even eat. It helps when you have an aunt who actually just shows up in your doorstep and gives you poha, and I'm like, oh, free food, I don't have to cook. I mean, so I would look at it from that level. Of course, you can't really ignore the fact that there are going to be issues that are existing in joint families. But which family does not have issues? If any family tells me they don't have issues, I'm like, yeah, liar. I mean, every single family I know has an issue. Even if you take 2 people in a family, they're going to have issues. You take 5 people in a family, they're going to have issues. You take 10 people in a family, they're going to have issues. They're going to fight about something. That's just how we roll. That's life. And the grass will always be greener or colorful on the other end. and all I know in life is that we learn to negotiate these spaces that we have. We learn to bargain in our spaces and relationship. If you asked me, would I have reached this level if it was not for my joint family? I would not have. I actually learned a lot of diplomacy, not by hanging around in Delhi, no offense, but actually by living with my joint family in Maharashtrian style. I mean, I really learned about, it's not about politics. It's just the diplomacy that is involved, because this is your family. What are you going to do about it when you're related to people that you probably sometimes despise or you hate, and you're asking yourself, why did I was born in this family? They're driving me crazy. Like, what the fuck did I do? Sorry, using that word, but this is our self-talk, right? We're like, why are we born? Why am I related to this person? God damn it, right? But there's this beautiful saying that, even my siblings have reminded me, even my cousin and I would remind each other that we are born in these families to really learn our most craziest of lessons. Now, you can call it the Mahabharata. We're living it. We really learn. we really learn that, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, nobody's a saint. Everybody has done something that is preposterous, and we learn that in our families, and why not? I mean,
No,
I'm not
I
going to go and
absolutely
live in a cave. Right?
No, and that's the
I mean,
beauty of
I'm not
Mahabharata.
suggesting, I'm
Yes.
not suggesting that we fall for the toxic positivity. I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting that you take in the abusers, or, right? I'm not suggesting any of that. I'm just saying that hota hai. Now, what am I supposed to do? Do I drag them by their collar? Do I butcher them? What do I do? And that's basically the journey of life. You will learn. Some of us will learn to maybe get out of the space physically. Some of us might realize that maybe I'm okay in living in this space, and that's really how it really works. It's each to your own. How are we going to know until we live it? Like, I know my
Yes,
siblings don't like living in a joint, and I'm the only sibling who's actually living in a joint family right now. But that's their, what's that saying? That's their prerogative. I can't pronounce my word, and that's mine.
no, like I think there's a saying as well that you can choose your friends, but you cannot choose your family members, and that is why the unconditional love comes for family and not friends. And I agree with it to some extent. And about Mahabharat, I 100% agree with you. Like, it's such a beautiful story. And like it shows the balance that even Pandavas that once we consider good could do such despicable deeds, and the demons and the people, the asurs, they could do some noble deeds as well. And it's just human life, and that's basically the psychological freedom. And based on that, so what is there? Is there any experience of yours or any literature or movies that could sum up psychological freedom for you?
Well, one of my favorite is actually Jiddu Krishnamurti.
Mm-hmm.
It was a book given to me by a friend of mine, a sister of my friend from school. She's featured in my documentary also, and she gave me the book called The Flight of an Eagle, and that to me has still been my Bible till date. And to quote Jiddu Krishnamurti, he says that it is no measure of health that we live in a profoundly sick society. I mean, I can go on giving you different literature. I mean, I also I'm a complete lover of science. So where chaos comes into being, it's also quantum physics. Jason likes chaos. There's the butterfly effect. That you and me and everybody else, we're all in a sync, right? And that's the understanding from a quantum physics point of view, that a butterfly flapping its wing in Chicago can cause a hurricane in Tokyo. And that's a beautiful part about us as humans. From a neuroscientific perspective, neuroscientists themselves, Vilayan Ramachandran, who specifically looks at mirror neurons, now has said that in his study with the mirror neurons in our brains, it shows that we are completely capable of empathy. Empathy does exist. And what that sums up to is that you and I are but nothing reflections. Every human being reflects the other person. And I mean, I can go on naming you different stuff, of course. I would say that it's also understanding that for me, my practice, or since you asked about the personal here, my practice has always been that what is more real for me, right? I can't say God is real. I've not really seen him in person, or I've not seen her in person. I've read about it. I don't know if aliens are real. It's a delusion that I exist in my head. I don't know actually vampires are even real, honestly to say. But I do know, and I can tell from 25 years of having lived with my madness and my condition, that I know a tree is very much real. I know that tomorrow when Mother Earth decides to open her mouth, you're going to get an earthquake and none of us are going to exist. I do know that the floods in Nainital caused by a cloud burst is not stoppable. And for me, nature is that's where I realize I am not powerful. Look at nature. In one snap of a finger and one thunderbolt, she can just wipe us out if she wants to. And from a shamanic perspective, that's where I come down to. If we just look at shamanism, so shamanism is more of a safer word for a lot of different concepts from cultures around the world that just looks at the law of nature, that let's respect nature. You know, because the beautiful part about nature is the sun does not rise at the same time every day. It does not set at the same time every day. Nature gives you abundantly, and she does not complain. She does not go that, oh, you chopped my trunk off, I'm going to send another tree to you, and that tree is going to destroy your house. She doesn't say that, right? We're saying it. we're the screwed up humans. We're saying it, okay? Like, nature's there. Nature has existed before us. It has existed before dinosaurs, and it is going to exist after my great, great, great illegitimate children will probably exist. Okay, and maybe yours also. Nature's going to exist. And if you can just look at power from that level, you know, I will not give you any books at the moment or any of these references. There are many I can give you, but I would just like to end it by saying that once upon a time, when I held a moth or I touched a tree, people called me mad. Today, if you actually do it, the whole world is going to say, wow, you know, that's shamanism. So the world is in a stage that is also accepting of all these processes. So why not? And just try that. I mean, it might seem to be something completely preposterous, but if you just take your hand and if you just put it on a tree, what would you say, or what would you imagine if I told you you can actually hear the tree's heartbeat? I mean, you would feel it with an animal. Why can't you feel it with a tree? So for me, it boils down to nature. We know animals are completely unconditional. We know what that feeling is. For those of us who interact with animals or have pets, we know that. We know that feeling that exists. It's completely free. I've never felt free unless I'm with an animal. And that has taught me how to also be free with other people. And that comes again to your first question, your authentic self. We are stuck in where we are because we are adults. We have developed an ego as adults, and we have forgotten how to be just laid back, free children. You know, children don't look at one another and say that, ha, 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 you know, you're like this. No, we don't do it. We learn to do it because we hear other adults telling us that. As kids, they don't develop these concepts. They accept people. They accept another being. They accept anything, right? And that's the beauty as kids that we have lost. And I'm always trying to tell people, like, don't lose that. So from self-actualization of mythology to Abraham Maslow's self-actualization, you just go back to the child inside of you. Can we just embrace and lift the child inside of us and look at another human being from that? Because our insecurities are really coming from the child inside of us, and not from the adults.
I mean, even Sigmund Freud implied the same thing. Like, all our problems that are happening is because of, what happens in us in childhood. And so, going to the literature references that you were talking about, and most of us are really interested in listening to it more. So, one of the most common novels that people have read is Pride and Prejudice. And in the same, Darcy is shown to have multiple signs of social anxiety, like where he struggles to make eye contact or refuses to speak to people that he doesn't know, and many other such examples that we have seen. So people perceive him to be rude and miserable. But this book was written in a really long time, and Jane Austen was from like a different time period. So do you think that the conversation around social anxiety and insecurity that you talked about right now is something that is to do has changed for better, or is still perceived the same?
Social insecurity, that's going to exist. Right now we're living in a world of technology where everybody's on their gadgets, and how many likes, how many comments, that social pressure is still going to exist. We can't really we can't wipe out the internet, of course, right? But what we can do is to hold spaces for each other. Social anxiety is never going to change. Tomorrow, out of some genetic mutation, some of us might develop blue hair, God knows, right? Some of us might develop forearms, God knows. But, and that is going to continue. We can't change the way human beings are and how we think, because you and I might agree to certain things, but other people might not agree to certain things, and that's how they are. But what we can do for each other is, how do we lessen this anxiety that we are facing, is to connect to another person. At the end of the day, we're not just social beings. We are emotional beings. We're not even sexual beings. We are emotional beings. And we have really forgotten that. Our thoughts and our emotions are nothing but verbalized thoughts. And if we just find somebody, it could be anybody, it could be a stranger who can accept you with the fear that you have, that is very important. Any fear. It could be fear that you might not even understand, right? But do you really need to understand somebody? Can't you just accept them with the fears that they come? And to me, that is powerful. When I can accept somebody's most preposterous concept of fear that they are displaying, which I will not understand. Take for example my father. I mean, it's easy to talk about our parents, right? They're not going to hold our throats to it. But I look at our parents, and I see that they come from a generation that does not even allow them to be on Instagram, to have these conversations. And I see how much of fear they themselves carry. And I'm always asking myself, so, okay, I sometimes can't stand him because of whatever reasons. Yeah, we can't stand our father sometimes. But I can see that he's reacting from a place of fear. And how can I accept him in that place of fear without having to understand him? Because if we try to understand, we're going to overthink so much, we're going to drive ourselves mad. We are bound to drive ourselves mad because we will overthink, instead to just look at him and go like, okay, this is interesting. What makes him behave like that? Let me offer him an ice cream. Oh wait, dad's got diabetes, he doesn't eat ice cream, but okay, let me offer him something else. It's that curiosity that you need to bring out, to just embrace the other person. And I think that's the only way for us to get rid of our social anxiety. I mean, sorry, it's not get rid of it. I mean, we can't get rid of it. We are bound to face anxiety, but to just connect with the other person. And who does not have social anxiety? Almost every single human being. And I can tell you, even me, as a lot of people think I'm this thing that shows up on stage who probably does not have stress or does not have any anxiety. I have anxiety. I do. I mean, if I don't look good, I'm like, shit, my hair's not looking good. I cannot do this phone call. I do have anxiety. I do have body image issues, and I'm not going to lie about it. I do. So, but at that point, can I connect to my audience and also tell them? And then my social anxiety just gets taken care of, because I know, you know what? Everybody has their social anxiety. There's no difference anymore. So let's share that social anxiety. I mean, when we share this social anxiety, there is no question of anxiety. There's just you and I being social.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think there's something that we'll just have to live with and make peace with it. And yes, so I unfortunately this session has to come to an end. Ma'am, this has been such a wonderful experience, and all the experiences that you have shared with us, all the moments, they are so relatable, and it was so fun listening to you and knowing you better and knowing psychological freedom in a new light better. So before we end, could you just give us some advice on how to attain psychological freedom, or how to break a few mental barriers and be happy and be at peace with ourselves?
Me give advice, drink green tea, I've heard. Smoke weed is something else. Somebody told me meditate. Please don't do any of that. It doesn't work. All right. So again, who am I to give you advice? I can only give myself advice. I can only share with you stuff that has worked. In short, you're your best advisor. Listen to yourself, and you might make your mistakes. We all do, all the time, but trust your gut and just believe that at some point you will get there. You will always find a different tool for yourself, and allow yourself to make that mistake. Allow yourself to, okay, I screwed up. Let me move on to the next, and I'll find a different tool again for myself. So there are many things that will get you your psychological freedom. I'm not going to list it for you guys. I mean, it's all out there, but the essence of it is never look at yourself as a person who is limited. If one thing works for you today, it might not work for you tomorrow. Chalta hai, theek hai, rehne do, move on to the next one. When it is time for you to come back to the first one, it will come back to you in time. That's just how life is.
These are really good words, and I think we'll all stick with the green tea and the other stuff you mentioned that we won't try, but the other things, allowing ourselves to make mistakes, we will definitely try that. Again, thank you so much, ma'am. This has been a wonderful experience, and I think I speak for everyone. This is something that we won't forget, extremely memorable, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
I shall,
Thank you too.
I'll end the live here. Yeah. Bye, ma'am.